In this lecture, we're going to take a look at how we can create models using Sequelize. Sequelize is an object relational mapper, which basically means that remember all the SQL commands that you were running before, like you were doing like select, all, from, task. So basically, object relational mapper allows you to create your classes basically in JavaScript and methods and functions which can generate SQL commands. So you don't have to type this anymore. You don't have to do any select commands anymore, any insert commands anymore. Remember these things? Insert into table, insert into task, and all that. You don't have to do that anymore because the object relational mapper is going to take care of that problem for you. Now, of course, it's not I'm not saying that you shouldn't learn SQL, because you definitely should learn SQL. But object relational mapper, and one of them is Sequelize, is going to allow you to uh, use JavaScript to issue these commands, to generate these SQL commands, which can give you back the data or insert data or delete data and all that. So right now I have a simple Express application. You can see nothing much going on over here, and in the package I don't even have Sequelize added. So let's get started and add Sequelize. So I'm over here. Okay, so I'm inside the folder called Sequelize app. The first thing you need to do is to install Sequelize. So npm install -g Sequelize -CLI. Now I've already done that, so this is going to install a command line interface so that you can work with Sequelize. And -g is saying that it's going to work, or it's going to install globally, so you can use it anywhere. Now, after you're doing that, after you've completed that, you need to install Sequelize for the project. So npm, that particular package, install Sequelize, make sure you spell it right, --save. All right, PG stands for Postgres, because we are using Postgres database, right? And it's going to save it for our project. Let's go ahead and do that. It's going to start downloading it. All right. Now at this point, you can actually go back into package.json, and here we go. These two lines were actually added. PG for Postgres database and Sequelize 4.2.0. All right. Now we need to initialize Sequelize. So we'll just say Sequelize init. No, okay, I spelled it wrong. Sequelize init. So this is going to initialize Sequelize, and it's going to create some folders, and one of those folders will be config with a file called config.json. And you can see in my project now I have a file over here called config.json. But what about the dialect? What database is it currently hooked up to? It says MySQL. Well, we're not really using MySQL, we're using Postgres. So how about we change this to tell it to that we're going to use Postgres, not MySQL. MySQL is another relational database, very, very famous MySQL relational database. All right, so we have done that. Now it's asking for us to enter the username on line number 3 and password on line number 4. Now this is basically asking for your machine, your username and password. So you can do that. I don't want to do that. I mean, I want to create maybe a new role so that I can do that. I can actually list that. So if I go to command line over here, and if I say over here actually, yeah, so this is the command line for Postgres, and if I say du, it's going to list all the users. And you'll see that one of the users is Muhammad Azam, which is the actual user of the Mac, which is the admin of the Mac. So Postgres, for me at least, it has created this user. Now I don't want to type my actual password over here in the password, right? So how about I create a new user? So let's go ahead and say create a role. I'm going to call that Bob with password and the most secured password we're going to use, which is password. All right. Now, obviously, if you are trying to deploy this to a production, never use Bob and password. Most probably use some sort of a secure username and secure password. So now I'm going to see users, and you're going to see that it has created the role Bob, but it says over here that it cannot log in. And look at all these roles that Muhammad Azam and Postgres role user has. But look at Bob; he doesn't have any, uh, any particular role. So let's do that. Alter user Bob with super user. All right, and let's go ahead and add some more create DB, and let's go ahead and add create role. And the final one, which is the most important one, is the login. So you should be able to log in. Now let's go ahead and run the users, and you'll see that Bob now this time has all the roles, just like Muhammad Azam, but now I can use Bob. So let's go over here. Username is Bob, and password is password. Now this is for the development environment, this is for the test environment, and this is for the production environment. We don't really care about, at this particular point, we don't care about the test and the production. We are only going to deal with the development because we are developing right now. Once you have made these changes, let's go back to the terminal and run our final command, which is Sequelize migrate and db migrate. So this is going to test everything out using local connection. Unable to connect, database development does not exist. Database development, oh, of course, we didn't change that. So what is the name of the database? It's certainly not database development. So let's go back over here and look at our database name. Well, the database name is taskdb, right? And if you want to look at the content of the table, the only table the taskdb has is the tasks table, and you can see that's ID, title, and the task, which is false if it's completed, or true if it's not, if it's completed, and false if it's not completed. So let's replace this with the taskdb. There we go. Line number 5. Let's go back and let's see if we can run it again. Okay, so loaded configuration using the environment deprecated. All right, so everything looks good at this point. All right, now it's time to create our model. Now, creating the model basically means we are going to create a class in JavaScript that is going to reflect our table in. All right, so after running Sequelize DB migrate, now it's time for us to basically create our model. Now this model is going to represent the task in the database, and basically we need to create a model that can reflect and represent what we are storing in the database, which in this case is a task, which will have two things: the title and if it's completed or not. So let's go ahead and do that. Sequelize model create. All right, and now the name of the model. So I would use a lowercase task, because if you use uppercase, it kind of, then you have to use quotation marks around, quotes around around the table name. That becomes a little bit more confusing. And I'm going to say attributes Now, what attributes do I want to have? Now, these are the column names basically. All right, so title, which will be of type string, and is completed, which will be of type Boolean. All right, so basically we're saying Sequelize, create a model, the name of the model will be task, the attributes, basically the columns in that particular model, the properties, the attributes of that model is title string, basically one is title and the other one is completed. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so now it should have created the model. The database it's using is, where is this? Task DB. Let's go ahead and, so we're already in the task DB. Actually, let me close this one up and jump into task DB again. This one, there we go. Let's see all the tables. Okay, oh, sorry, we need to run db migrate. All right, so let's go Sequelize. If you don't run db migrate, it's not going to create anything new. It's not going to migrate the models that you have created, which is this, to database. It's not going to convert these models into the database. So let's go ahead and run db migrate. All right, now let's go to our, over here, run this again. And look at that. We have a new table called tasks. That's cool. So let's go ahead and do select all from tasks. And look at that. It has title and it has is completed. So that's pretty cool that we were able to use command line tools to create our table called task. It's completely empty right now. There's nothing in there. But in the next lecture, we're going to see how we can actually start populating tasks and saving tasks. So stay tuned for that.